Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tracing an absolutely incredible arc of human survival on the Marshall Islands. We're going to take you all the way from ancient master navigators who quite literally conquered the Pacific, right up to the modern climate warriors fighting for their homeland today. If you want to understand how a seemingly tiny island nation has played such a massive role on the global stage, well, you're definitely in the right place. Let's get into it. Here's our roadmap for today's journey. First, masters of the ocean. Second, the era of empires. Third, the nuclear legacy. Fourth, forging a new nation. Fifth, preserving cultural identity. And finally, navigating the future.
Section 1. Masters of the Ocean, an endless horizon. Let's kick things off by looking way back to around 2000 BC, when early inhabitants first sailed into Micronesia. To really grasp the geography here, you've got to wrap your head around this scale: 2 million. Their territory spans over 2 million square kilometers of the Central Pacific Ocean. That is a staggering expanse of water, larger than the continental United States. For thousands of years, the ocean wasn't a barrier to the Marshallese. No, it was their highway, their grocery store, and the absolute foundation of their culture. But here is the wild paradox. In stark contrast to that massive ocean territory, their actual landmass is merely 750 square miles. You see, when you only have tiny, low-lying atolls scattered across millions of kilometers of water, getting lost is literally a matter of life and death. So long before European contact, they developed an astonishingly sophisticated navigation system, and they didn't just rely on line of sight. They navigated based on the stars, the complex interplay of ocean waves bouncing off distant atolls, and the wind. They were, for sure, absolute masters of the ocean.
Section 2. The era of empires, a dizzying succession. Now we're shifting our tone from wonder to historical reality, as this isolated genius collided with sweeping global forces. Just look at this rapid-fire succession of colonial powers that claimed these islands. The Spanish arrived in the 1500s, making that first European contact. By 1886, the German Empire stepped in, establishing a bustling center of commerce, mainly driven by the copra trade, dried coconut meat. Then, following World War I, the League of Nations handed the islands over to a Japanese mandate, which unfortunately brought the devastation of World War II right to their shores. And finally, post-World War II, the United States assumed control as a post-war trustee. Each of these empires dramatically altered the Marshallese way of life, effectively turning their isolated home into strategic, geopolitical chess pieces.
Section 3. The nuclear legacy. Ground zero in the Pacific. Following World War II, under U.S. control, a deeply, deeply somber chapter in the archipelago's history began. The crucial point to take away here is this staggering number, 65. The United States conducted 65 atmospheric nuclear tests here between 1946 and 1958, right alongside 2 underground tests. To put that into perspective, the test bombs dropped on the Marshall Islands amounted to the largest single fully realized military operation in American history up to that point. And the effects? They were simply harrowing. We're talking about the forced, unremediated displacement of islanders. People were uprooted and moved to places like Keeley, 900 miles away from the Marshalls, leaving them completely reliant on imported goods. The military even used islands that weren't originally designated for tests, creating these hidden, unofficial ground zeros. And worst of all, the nuclear fallout spread far beyond the planned areas, hitting atolls like Aleuk. Yet, when locals tried to share their oral histories regarding the fallout incidents, they were banned, dismissed, and largely ignored by authorities. Section 4. Forging a new nation. The path to independence. As nationalism started to rise in the 1960s and 70s, the people of the Marshall Islands began a powerful grassroots movement towards self-government. It brings up a really profound question of agency that we have to ask ourselves. How do you protest a nuclear superpower? Seriously, how does a tiny island population stand up against immense military hegemony? How do you demand an end to testing and fight for your sovereignty when your home is occupied by the most powerful military force on Earth?
Well, on March 1st, 1971, they took direct action. A group bravely borrowed a traditional outrigger canoe and sailed 14 miles straight into the test zone. They landed on Moser Island, a place the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission had literally just declared uninhabited and radiation-free 4 days prior. The islanders set up camp, prepared food for 48 hours, until a U.S. helicopter showed up, sparking a really tense standoff with military officers. The U.S. actually threatened to evict them by force. But this sheer act of bravery forever altered the political terrain. It essentially paved the way for treaties instead of trusts. Section 5. Preserving cultural identity, deep roots in a modern world. Despite all the political victories that eventually led to the 1986 Compact of Free Association, granting them domestic sovereignty, the true anchor of their resilience is their enduring culture.
For example, they have this beautiful tradition of oral history known as age imbok. It literally translates to walking on someone else's path. It's an elaborate recounting of personal genealogy. Think of it as a system where family memory is meticulously converted into the history of the islands themselves. Chiefs and elders memorize massive, verbatim lines of lineage, ensuring their heritage survives even the harshest disruptions. It's truly a living, breathing archive of their existence.
And their culture isn't just about the past, right? It's an active tool for the present. They utilize traditional Akak poetry actively today. Now, this isn't poetry read quietly from a book. It is executed with prosody, gesture, and music. The poet delivers the Akak, giving the recipient a chance to pause and reflect before responding. It's a highly sophisticated form of political rhetoric used in high-stakes negotiations over border rights, internal power struggles, and yes, even the nuclear question. They are literally bringing ancient rebel art directly into modern diplomacy. It's amazing.
Section 6. Navigating the future, modern complexities, and the climate crisis. Today, having finally gained their independence, they face a whole new frontier of challenges, requiring urgent action and international cooperation.
Economically, they're in the middle of a massive transition. As they navigate the economic freedom gained from the Compact of Free Association with the U.S., alongside the gradual loss of U.S. subsidies, their economy is shifting. Right now, the public sector still dominates at 66%. But the government is actively working to reduce that reliance by developing the private sector, specifically targeting sustainable tourism and fisheries to buffer themselves against global economic shocks. But here's why this matters to all of us globally right now: their extreme vulnerability to climate change. Remember those 750 square miles of land we talked about at the beginning? It is deeply, deeply threatened. Current studies suggest the Marshall Islands could lose 10 to 20% of their land area in just the next 50 years due to rising sea levels. With an average elevation of just a few feet above water, they are facing increasing coastal inundation, severe cyclones, and rising salinity that is literally destroying their vital agricultural land. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. The Marshall Islands have survived a dizzying parade of global empires. They survived being the staging ground for 65 atmospheric atomic bombs. But their final survival, against the rising tides of a warming ocean, well, that depends on the global community. Will the resilient master navigators of the Pacific be forced to abandon their home, or will the world finally learn from their story? Thank you so much for learning with us today. Keep asking those big questions, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.